The Toronto Raptors have been linked to a Dejounte Murray trade in a recent report, and this paired alongside the little Woj bomb that dropped yesterday that revealed that the Atlanta Hawks are desperately trying to get rid of their star guard. This is a lot of Toronto Raptors fans turning their heads, as Dejounte doesn't seem like the greatest fit on this roster after the acquisitions of Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and still with Dennis Schroeder and Gary Trent Jr. in the lineup. So we're going to break down everything going on surrounding this situation and why this potential trade with Siakam going to the Hawks and, in talks for a Dejounte Murray trade might not necessarily mean Dejounte coming back to Toronto, because frankly, I don't see that really making a whole ton of sense. So lots of stuff to dive into, but guys, if you want to stay up to date with everything regarding this Toronto Raptors team, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're keeping you up to date. And if you're part of the 57% of our viewers that aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button because we're going to be delivering you all the latest Toronto Raptors news. But let's dive into it because this report really confused me. And there was a multitude of Siakam stuff that has dropped yesterday. I kind of left this one aside. It came in this big block of news because I thought Dejounte Murray, given the previous links, given the previous speculation, given how much we know the Atlanta Hawks want to acquire Pascal Siakam, this kind of warrants its own discussion. It's basically Chris Haynes, who again has definitely fumbled some reports as of late regarding the Toronto Raptors, but he came out and said that rival executives believe the Lakers and the Toronto Raptors, among other teams, will begin progressing to more serious discourse with the Atlanta Hawks pertaining to star guard Dejounte Murray. Obviously, the LA Lakers are a team that, are really sort of linked to Dejounte. Other teams as well, the Sixers, the Heat. Lots of reports have come out about the Atlanta Hawks because, as I mentioned in the intro, Adrian Wojnarowski has revealed that the Atlanta Hawks are desperately trying to get rid of this guy, and they don't see the fit of Trae Young and Dejounte really working out that great. And you look at Dejounte Murray's stats, again, you look a couple seasons ago, just with the San Antonio Spurs, particularly that 2021-2022 season where he was an all-star, he averaged 21, 8, and 9. So close to a triple-double, 2 steals a night. His defense was on lock. Again, Dejounte Murray was sort of a star guy, and now he's definitely changed this game. He is still like an elite player in this league. Do not get me wrong. 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, the past couple seasons, but not the sort of, all-around dude playing next to Trae Young, who, again, gets a lot of assists, has the ball in his hands a lot, right? It's tough to sort of put up those types of numbers around Trae. They have some redundant sort of skill sets. So you get why the fit isn't really working. The Hawks have not been that great this season, so they're trying to get rid of Dejounte, move out from him, and then bring back a player that makes more sense around Trae Young and see if they can build that group, because Trae has been a guy that has made a conference finals, made a push, again, in a sort of COVID-linked year and stuff, but again, Dejounte Murray's a piece that is pretty well almost assuredly going to get dealt ahead of this year's trade deadline, and the Raptors are a team that the Hawks have been in discussions with. So what does it make sense? Why could this be a good deal for the Toronto Raptors? Well, again, the stats are good for Dejounte. We just ran through him. He's a guy that's only 27 years old, shooting close to 40% from behind the three-point line. And, his three-point shooting is not just sort of, open threes. He creates his own shots. Even though his corner 3% this season only is 37%, which is down, it was 44 last year, so it's not something I'm super concerned about, so he can hit those spot-up shots, but the percentage of his threes that are assisted on is only 70%, 71% this season, so that might seem like a lot. That might look at that and be like, Ben, most of his threes are getting dimed on, but 70%, if you compare that to the rest of the guys across the league, most of the time those numbers are kind of in the 90s for a lot of good three-point shooters in the NBA. So the fact that Dejounte Murray right now is making 30% of his threes not assisted, that means those are tough kind of off the dribble looks. That means he's creating a lot of shots, and around a guy like Scotty Barnes, you're around a guy especially like RJ Barrett, who we saw last night, can be inconsistent, can have highs and lows. I think people are overreacting to specifically RJ Barrett. Again, horrible loss to the Utah Jazz last night. Didn't even do a post-game given the lateness and just the despair in my soul after that one. You feeling bad, and the thank goodness that West Coast road trip is over, but having shooting around RJ Barrett is going to be good, and I'm still very high on RJ Barrett despite the fact he had a stinker of a game last night. But Dejounte Murray would fit well with this current Raptors group, our current sort of young core, so, definitely not a bad player to get back in a Pascal Siakam trade. But as I sort of mentioned in the intro, we have loaded. We are loaded at the guard position now at this point for this Raptors team. We have two starting caliber players in Quickly and RJ who are young, who are sort of going to be pieces of the future for this Raptors team. So Dejounte Murray, he's not coming off the bench. He wouldn't come off the bench with either of these two guys either. So, it doesn't really make sense to sort of have this young developing piece, even though Dejounte's still kind of young, 27, not over the hill by any means, 3 years younger than Siakam if this deal were to potentially happen. So, it's not like you're getting an old wash guy, but having Quickly potentially develop into whatever he might be is something I'm really excited about. RJ Barrett is a piece that I think, people are going to be high and low on over the course of his career, but it's been overall really good for this Toronto Raptors group. Making that trade, it's kind of redundant to then go out and get Dejounte Murray. So there's that sort of whole piece of it. And then, in a Pascal Siakam deal, right? If you're making that sort of trade with the Atlanta Hawks, you're giving up even more sort of depth in that front court. So again, you want some sort of big men. You want something to sort of tighten up that front court if you're sending Pascal Siakam out. So I don't think it sort of really makes sense unless there's a lot more trades on the docket for Masai Ujiri to bring back Dejounte Murray in a potential package. So that's my first sort of stance. That's my first sort of perspective. And then given also the fact that Chris Haynes has been hit and miss at times, I don't expect Dejounte Murray to be a Toronto Raptor ahead of this year's trade deadline, even though I do project him getting traded certainly ahead of this year's deadline. So what does this mean? Why even make a video on this? Well, because where there's smoke, where there's discussions, where there's all this going on, right? We've heard all the Pascal Siakam stuff. We know how desperately the Atlanta Hawks want to get Pascal Siakam. So they're dangling Dejounte Murray in a trade, and obviously it's impossible to project sort of 3-team deals. But I wouldn't be shocked if something ends up happening with a Pascal Siakam going to the Atlanta Hawks, Dejounte Murray, and other pieces. I'm not going to try to talk about every possible framework of a package that could go down, but I think the realistic possibility, given the willingness of the Atlanta Hawks to deal with Dejounte Murray now at this point, makes it much more likely that they're willing to give up Pascal Siakam, and that's able to acquire Pascal Siakam, and that's huge for Toronto because, again, there's a lot of teams out there that are interested in Pascal, but they're worried about his contract. Maybe the positional fit doesn't work and they want to acquire a star player. But now we have the option of obviously just directly trading Pascal to the large market of suitors that are interested in acquiring him, or we could deal him to the Atlanta Hawks, and then they can acquire a guard that is under contract, that is capable, at that position, is a former All-Stars, all those types of things. And then the Raptors get rerouted to assets that they may have not been able to acquire in a Pascal Siakam deal. So what does this really mean? What is this really sort of, what's the real takeaway from this report from Chris Haynes? Which, again, 2 years ago, people were saying, maybe even a year ago, this time last year, Chris Haynes is slowly rising to the level of credibility of a Shams or even H. Wojnarowski, but that has sort of been knocked down a peg, at least so far as, his misses over the past 6 months. But if this report is really true and there's actual discussions going on, talks with Dejounte Murray and the Raptors and things, I think it will likely transition or turn into a 3-team deal. So the Raptors, the main takeaway is there's more options, there's more possibilities for a deal to potentially happen. And given everything that we've heard, particularly from Agent Wojnarowski, that the Raptors and Siakam aren't close on a contract extension, we are going to need every possible avenue of leverage of, potentially putting the chess pieces together, make the right deal to make the right acquisition. We are going to need really everything to come into place in order to get a deal like the Toronto Raptors got for OG Anunoby, given the fact that Pascal Siakam is an unrestricted free agent. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are the best for making the star. Again, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything regarding this team. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.